Hi, it's Paul from the series Dancing with Cancer, yet again. Um, Today I got a little bit of a telling off from a good friend, only telling me something I already knew, which was these videos are fine, but you keep saying things in them, telling us you're going to tell us stuff later. When are you going to do that? Don't forget about it. Um, and she was right. I've got already created a lot of videos, and no doubt there'll be plenty more. Um, but there's one thing I think I really have to start talking about a little bit more. A lot of you know the circumstances already, but given what I've said up to now, it seems the right time. I've talked about my wife up to now. It'll seem strange for those of you who don't know our circumstances that I talk about it in the way that I do. So it's time to explain that. I've already spoken to she, as we all know her, about this, and she's happy for me to do that. And I wouldn't do it without her permission. So let's go on a little bit of a history journey. Keep it as short as possible. Sheila and I were married in 1990, so a very long time ago. Um, we had our son Adam in 1998. He was the most amazing thing in the world and who we're both incredibly proud of. Um, it would be easy to say we had the most idyllic marriage, but the truth is that isn't true. Um, but through all the hard times and the difficult times, it became apparent to us that no matter how much each of us drove the other one mad, we couldn't bear to be apart. So we stayed together. We came pretty close to that not being the case on a number of occasions, but we stayed together. Um, just over 5 years ago, in September 2019, I had made the decision to leave the job I'd had for nearly 30 years because it was driving me completely and utterly insane. I'd loved it for 28, 29 of those years. For the last year, it became unbearable. And I'm not going to go into the details of that now, or at all, actually. It's not relevant. So I made the decision to retire from that role, um, take a part-time role, maybe do a bit of work for myself, and de-stress. Full support of Sheila, who didn't want to leave her job that she had at the time. Although we had plans later down the road. In fact, ultimately our plans were to retire in Portugal, the place where we live. Just over a week after I'd retired, and 2 days before I was due to start my new life as a part-time postman, Sheila collapsed. She came home from work and collapsed, completely unexpectedly. Um, it's true to say that I saved her life on that night. Um, within the space of 5 hours, having had an ambulance called, having been taken to the local hospital, Sheila was in Liverpool, having been flown by emergency air ambulance. I fell ill the next day as I wasn't allowed to travel with her. She was in intensive care for weeks at the Walton Centre in Liverpool. She and I stayed in Liverpool for 6 months, her in the hospital and me in various different places. It was an incredibly tough time. And I certainly had some dark moments in that time. We were both assigned a counsellor during the time at the Walton Centre, and that was absolutely brilliant. We eventually reached a point, I eventually reached a point, maybe 4 months into the journey, where it became apparent that there wasn't going to be a miracle. That the situation that we were in then, after the period of intensive care, coming out of intensive care, having a load of other issues, not being able to have physiotherapy because of those issues, we'd reached a point where things weren't going to improve much more, if at all. And we made the decision that because the pandemic was looming and lockdown was about to happen and the Isle of Man was about to close its borders, we would leave and come back. We did that with 24 hours to spare. Sheila came back and went straight into Noble's Hospital, and I came back and came home. For the whole of that 6 months, I'd spent almost all day, every day with Sheila. Couldn't bear to be away from her. A couple of short trips home for clothes and sort some stuff out, but apart from that, all day, every day. We came back from Liverpool. The island went into lockdown, and Sheila wasn't allowed any visitors for quite some time. Our only contact initially was via the odd phone call, with Sheila not particularly able to be very communicative during those calls. It was horrendous for both of us, in truth. And during that period, through lots of meetings with professionals, I was ultimately persuaded that it wasn't going to be possible for Sheila to come home, and that the only option available for her was to be in a nursing home. So after 3 months in the local hospital, and she was told via a FaceTime call with me at one end and her and a social worker at the other end that she'd be moving to a nursing home. And she did. That was over 5 years ago now. I've talked before about me and counselling and why I had counselling prior to the cancer issue, and most of that was around Sheila, what was happening to Sheila, how I was coping with it or not, the guilt, a guilt that I'd saved her life, the guilt that she was in a nursing home and I was out and able to do things. I couldn't tell her about those things because of the guilt, sadness, anger, all of the change care of emotions, I suppose. Some of those still exist, can't hide away from that, but I'm dealing with them a lot better these days. We are dealing with them a lot better these days. And no matter what's happening now in relation to my cancer diagnosis, I keep reminding myself that none of it can possibly be as bad or as difficult as what Sheila's had to deal with and continues to have to deal with every day of her life. I've said before that she's my complete inspiration, and that's 100% truth. She's dealt with this with such dignity, such a fighter as she is, a high degree of stubbornness. She won't mind me saying that. And she's a complete inspiration, especially now when it's my turn to have to deal with stuff. I can't even describe how proud of her I am, how much I love her, how much it means to me that she's trying her best right now to be there for me. I'm doing all I can to include her in all of this. We're sitting and watching the Clatterbridge, Christie's, Macmillan videos together. She enjoys watching these videos, and it's one of the ways we all keep in touch while I'm in Liverpool having my treatment. But there's no hiding away from the fact that it's a shit show. And we just make the very best of it. As I reminded her again today, ultimately I'm incredibly grateful, particularly to the staff at the Walton Centre, for the fact that I've had these extra 5 years so far with Sheila, because for a very, very, very long time that looked extremely unlikely. So I try and paint that picture to her as often as I can. I don't think I want to say an awful lot more about it, really. You can just about see a picture of Sheila and I on our wedding day behind there. house is full of memory walls. That was Sheila's idea, actually, of every kind: friends, family, holidays, pets, socials. Upstairs I've got a whole load related to dance music and dance music events, and one or two to football as well. So I just wanted to fill in that gap, really, of in the story about me and my family. When I said in one of the previous messages or videos that this was a pile of shit in amongst another load of an already existing pile of shit, perhaps you got a little bit of insight, more of an insight into that now. I'm going to say again, though, I'm incredibly grateful that she's still with us, been with us for another 5 years, be with us for a lot longer still, I hope. Part of my journey through cancer, helps me get through it without a doubt. It has been incredibly supportive. And just reiterate that I love my amazing wife. I think that's a good point to end. So bye for now. From Paul, from the series Dancing with Cancer.